Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in a personal story segment tonight, part two of my discussion with Senator John McCain. On the heels of the Hillary Clinton interview, we talked about the campaign and domestic policy with Senator McCain last night. Now this evening, we begin with what McCain thinks will get him elected president: national security. Let's take war on terror first. You're opposed to waterboarding. Yes. And I disagree with you on that. I think the President of the United States should have, just the President, should have the legal authority to order waterboarding in extraordinary circumstances. Now, according to Tenet and to President Bush, used 3 times on Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, al-Nasiri, and Abu Zubaydah. All 3 times the men broke when they were waterboarded, and they gave out information, according to the Bush administration, that saved thousands of lives.
Well, first of all, the scenario you're talking about is million to one. Second of all, well, you know that when you torture anybody, we know that they'll give you things only what they want to hear.
These people gave up very good information.
They gave up very bad information, too, according to some sources. But the point is, do you want to abrogate the Geneva Conventions? In the next war that we're in, if you want an American tortured, after a serviceman or a woman, by some foreign country when we're in another war, because we did it to the people in our captivity.
These are terrorists. They're not soldiers, though. Look, they're not entitled to
the Geneva Convention. Yes, they are. The Geneva Conventions apply. In all due respect, I'll send you the information. Geneva applies to every person who is held in captivity by another country, even criminals, and that if they're in combat. And now there's a difference between uniformed combatant and non-uniformed combatant.
You think 9/11 they were combatants, those people?
I think that they were. I think we're in a war against radical Islamic extremism, and I think that war is all over the globe. And I believe, as Colin Powell does, and these military officers who spent an entire career, that the Geneva Conventions call for a prohibition for inhumane, cruel, and degrading treatment. And their concern is what happens to Americans in future wars if they are held captive.
And we're not fighting a nation now.
We are fighting a conflict, and the Geneva Conventions have clear applications.
We'll have a gentleman's disagreement on that one.
To them.
Dick Morris wants me to ask you this question. You know Morris?
Yes, sir.
He's a strange guy. Do you know him?
I don't know him well. I really don't know him well.
He thinks Netanyahu is going to be the next prime minister of Israel, and he thinks when that happens, Netanyahu is going to do a preemptive strike on Iran. Boom, knock them out because of the nukes. Would you support that strike?
I would have to know the circumstances. I would have to know the nature of the threat, etc. All I can say.
I told Morris
let me just tell you
you were going to say that.
But any president would have to have that information. But let me also say, I will never allow a second Holocaust.
If you believe, as President of the United States, Iran has the nuke or close, you're going to knock them out?
You can't get into these hypotheticals. You really can't.
It's hard.
But I would not allow a second Holocaust.
All right, now you're going to have a tough sell on Iraq because 60%, 65% of Americans are against it, and they're tired, blood and treasure. And the GAO and even the Iraqi government says the corruption over there within the Iraqi government itself is off the chart. So how much more does America have to absorb for a government that is inefficient and corrupt?
This government is functioning badly, but better. Okay, that Sunnis just agreed to come back into the government after leaving it. Maliki government now has control of Basra. If you'd have told me 6 months ago that they have control of Basra, I would have been a little surprised. They are gaining ground in Mosul, and where a big battle is going on. Look, that government is going to have elections sometime late this fall. That government is now, has told Sadr that basically if you're going to keep fighting the government, then we're not going to allow you in the next election. The problem in Iraq today is not so much the government as it is rule of law. The progress is there. The progress is there on the ground. And it's been long and hard and frustrating and great sacrifice. And it was mishandled terribly for nearly 4 years, as we know. But they are succeeding. And just let me tell you the consequences of setting a date for withdrawal. And that is you would have chaos, you would have genocide, America would have to come back, and there would be greater sacrifice of American blood and treasure. Nobody hates war more than those of us who have been in them. But I also know the consequences when you don't exercise a fundamental principle that Ronald Reagan articulated with 3 words: peace through strength. I said a year ago, my friend, when you and I were off camera, we were talking, and when I'd much rather lose a campaign than lose a war, because I think there's so much at stake, and that's our precious young Americans who are the bravest and the best, but have to be cared for better, just as you and I talked earlier.
One of the questions that Hillary Clinton had difficulty with last week with me was Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yep.
I asked her, and I'm going to ask you, do you know where command and control is for the Taliban right now?
Oh, yes. The place called Waziristan.
Okay, but it's a little further south in Quetta. Quetta is not up in the north west provinces.
Could I just say that there are areas of Waziristan that you know that the Pakistani government, Musharraf, made a, quote, bargain with.
But Quetta, you could get them, and the Pakistani government won't. How are you going to make them?
I think that our relations with Pakistan are in a very dicey situation today with the new government. I know that our relations with Pakistan are vital.
As long as the Taliban can hide and have those safe harbors, Afghanistan will never be stable.
And I agree with you about Quetta. But I also tell you that Waziristan is hard to govern.
But the Pakistani government has got to help us. And
they have to help us.
To that.
They have to help us.
All right.
Exactly.
All right, last question, and I promise I'll let you go after this. The Obama campaign let loose its theme, I don't know whether you picked it up, that voting for John McCain is voting for a President Bush third term. That there's no difference between you and President Bush. That puts you in a bit of a difficult position. You don't want to insult the President of the United States, do you?
No.
He's unpopular. It's a 20% approval. How are you going to handle that?
Well, two ways. One, my record, obviously, on climate change, on spending, on the war in Iraq, etc. But also, I really believe that this election will be decided on vision and change.
I'm looking forward to the debates, and you're welcome anytime, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right, and we will have reaction to the McCain interview coming up in the mail segment.